Hey everybody, this is Dark Guardsman. We're back with another video. Now, I made a video like at 2 in the morning here showing off a new explosion in ICBM, and here we're back to show off the same explosion but kind of explain how it works and why it was even implemented and why we're not working on ICBM Classic, etc, etc. Now, to answer the last question, we're not working on ICBM Classic simply because, well, I am, but I'm not. It's a strange way to think about it. I decided to quickly take a break from working on it to work on a feature for ICBM just to kind of have a quick laugh and actually make something entertaining, as most of the work that's left for ICBM Classic is fixing recipes, catching small minor bugs, and of course fixing render code. Anyways, as soon as this actually loads, we'll go ahead and show off the explosive again. The latency and the load time has nothing to do with the explosion, it's just the fact that my game client and stuff does not like to run very well when I've got OBS running. And I've got OBS actually capturing at 60 frames per second, which I normally let it run at 30, and it's not too happy about that, but we're getting better quality recordings with 60 frames per second. Anyways, you can already see from the last recording, if you've actually seen that, what this explosion actually does is makes a glass spear that captures the content of the spear in basically a 2 block thick glass and then nukes everything else around it. The concept was proposed by Proxy, and let me go ahead and pull up the Discord chat here. So over in Mod Development Discord, they have a request channel down here where people can request whatever random thing they want to request. And Proxy here decided he wanted to have a Biosphere nuke that would basically capture everything in an 11 by 11 chunk, fill it with glass, keep the contents inside the glass, a hollow spear basically, or a shell if you want to put it that way, and then nuke everything in 2 chunks outside. Now, I'm not going to actually make an explosive that is 11 chunks by 11 chunks in size. That is a little too big because that's, let's say, every chunk is 16. That's 176 radius pretty much. And that's not going to go over, well, actually, that's diameter. This would be radius. I guess we could probably do an 88 without too much of an issue, but I decided this needs to be scalable, so we made it scalable. How this defaults off as is it's got a radius of 20 and it cuts that in half to make the spear. So the spear has got a radius of 10 and the crater out here has got a radius of 20, and it works out really well. So we can effectively shoot at anything and it will capture it inside of a glass ball. And for whatever reason, I don't exactly know why you would want to do this. Maybe you want to make some decorations really quick. The reality is this probably could have been implemented with a server command more than likely, rather than doing it with an ICBM explosive, but it's a great excuse to work with different sets of code, as things like this were planned for ICBM, not exactly in this way, but I did want to do what was considered builder explosives, so explosives that were designed to be used for building rather than just actually destroying everything. I mean, it does work. We're getting some kind of cool stone down here. I wonder what mod I installed that actually added all this stone to the world. This looks like... oh yeah, underground biomes. Yeah, that's right, I actually implemented that just to fix some ore issues. But yeah, so this captures it, craters around it, and it scales with the size, so if we launch a larger explosive, this is a micro is about 20, and I might actually scale that down. Right now I've got it at 20 because it's great, makes it pretty good for demonstration testing. So let's go find a small. So small is going to be, I believe, 3 times that size, so this should be a 60. So let's go find a little bigger thing to capture. I'm going to say this mountain would be a good thing to capture. It's going to take a little longer to actually build. How this actually does work inside the code is it does actually path over in a cube-based pather. So it goes from one corner of the cube to the next. It starts from the bottom and goes all the way up to the top. It is threaded. It is threaded per layer, so it does 1 layer at a time in the thread. This is the reason why it actually takes a while to run. And it also takes a while to run because it's actually a big cube. It actually will go through and path. Now, how it stays a spear is it does a simple distance check, and let me go ahead and show the code here. That's how the code works. We get our layer via the actual layer system, or we get our Y level through the layer system, and then we just move through the X and the Z. It's a very standard voxel-based spear generator. We then simply go, okay, if we're underneath the spear size, we need to then go, okay, I want to make a glass 2 layers thick. If not, as long as we're underneath the size of the actual explosion, blow up the ground. And this is still running. The fact is, this is actually probably placing blocks as we speak. It's just there is a hard limit on the number of blocks that can be placed by ICBM per tick to prevent the game from just completely, utterly stalling out on us. I believe it's set to 200, so this might take a few minutes to actually run. I am going to probably end up in the future working on explosives like this to thread them even faster, as there is no reason why we have to thread it per Y level. We can also decide, you know what, let's also thread it per X and thread it per Z. So we can actually decide, okay, I want to thread 100, 200 blocks at a time, and we calculate 100, 200 blocks at a time, dump them into the world, go back, thread again. So what this is going to do right now is it's going to calculate one layer, and one layer in this exact instance is going to be pretty much the size amp. So if this was 60, this is going to be 60 times 2 plus 1, and then this is going to be equivalent on the other side, so it's going to be times itself. So it's going to be calculating 15,000 blocks per layer. So we have to wait for that first layer to actually run for anything to actually happen in the world. Not the fastest system ever. At least I can say the world's not lagging while this is running, because the threading system is that epic. But let's actually hope we don't run out of RAM. When we were testing this earlier, one of the biggest things that actually happened was that RAM was an issue. The larger the explosive you get, the more RAM it consumes. This is definitely something I actually am actively working on solving, as there are a few explosive types that do consume a massive amount of RAM, and you can watch it up there as it slowly just keeps climbing and climbing as we keep calculating. It should eventually, when it finishes a layer, dump all the RAM from the layer, and yeah, there we go, we actually just garbage collected a decent amount. So we can probably tell when each layer is finished simply by the memory clearing out every single time. I don't think it's actually using all 200 of that itself, because we can actually do the math for this too. So if we do know it's doing about roughly 15,000 locations, then it's very likely generating a single pause object, and that single pause object should be storing via bytes, or via integers, which an integer, I think it's 4 bytes if I'm not mistaken. So if we times this by 8 to do the number of bytes, and we know that each integer is 4, and we have 3 integers plus a world check. So I'm going to say, I'll say times by 15 just to give us a good estimate. And this is in bytes, so that's only going to be eating 1 point something 8 megabytes. So yeah, we're not eating up all that memory ourselves. Of course, there's also other stuff that goes into play in this to calculate what memory usage is. But yeah, waiting for this to actually run. Oh, we can see it running over here because it's killing the spear next door. Yeah, the sad part is that I think one of these spears contains my test environment that I was using earlier. So needless to say, it's getting nuked. Oh yeah, look at that crater down there. There's something I did forget to do with this is I forgot to check for minimum Y level. So that's definitely something I'm going to have to do in there. Now the program that actually does place all the blocks and actually does do all the threading does understand it can't place blocks below and above the map, so it auto fixes it for me, but I probably should tell the Pathfinder not the path underneath the world, so that way it goes faster. But yeah, look at that. That's working okay for the fact of what it is. Definitely could speed it up. Now, what I think I might end up doing to speed up just this explosive by itself, I might figure out what the size of the spear is first, run the Pathfinder for the spear first before everything else, and then run the pathing for the actual crater afterwards. And how this would probably work is I'll do this per chunk, because we can feed a chunk into this calculation here. Because what we're simply doing is running a distance check, which I do need to remove the square root off this. I get rid of the square root part of this, and it'll go even faster by itself. But, well, actually the block placement will still be limited, but the threading will go faster. But what we can do is, because this only cares about what the TX, TY, and TZ is, we take this part of the equation and we break it off into its own little thing. And then we feed in an X, Y, Z coordinate, and we go, okay, can I have a block here, or what's my block at this location? Then we break up the entire path system into chunks, and then we path each chunk individually as a layer. And that way it'll go faster. And then we simply go, okay, prioritize the chunks that have the glass spear in it first. That way the glass spear will build quicker. So that way we get the glass spear built right away. And then we do some other math to go, okay, we don't need to path this area because we know for sure we're inside the spear. and we'd run a couple other tricks to just make it go faster on top of that. Now these same tricks I can go turn around and actually apply to other explosive types. So if we come down the road and we make more and more explosives, and I'm actually working on improving the code, as even though I'm using pathfinders to actually implement the explosives in ICBM currently, I think I'm going to be switching back to ray traces, what we used in the classic version, because I'm finding out that even though the ray traces were considered slower, they produce much more beautiful results, and as long as you're threading them, who cares what the speed is? Because we still have that limit of placing only 200 blocks a tick, so if we still have to wait tick-wise, it doesn't really matter what exactly we're doing. Now let me go ahead and get back out of view here and check what our memory is. Our memory's good, our frame rate's doing good. It's really just the chunk updates that are killing us right now. Having to re-render over here. But it's almost done building. I think it actually might have finished, it's just my game has not caught up with the render. But this is a really cool system. What I think I'll do is I'll leave this one creative mode only, so for those who are actually adminning on servers who want to build a Biosphere real quick or something for a build system, they can do it. And then I'm going to come through and make another one of these that's actually tech-based, that works with modular force field system, that'll build a temporary force field around an area that lasts, say, a couple hours, that you can then use to capture somebody and troll the living snot out of them. We'll figure out a way to make it logical. What I think I'll do is I'll have the missile land, and the missile will generate a force field. And then if you blow the missile up, then the force field will collapse. So the missile itself will act as a force field. And what we'll do is we'll implement that when we implement the node system for modular force field system, because then what we can do is simply say, okay, run the node for the projector out of the missile. Because the node system, for those who've never caught on, allows us to run any machine inside of any object, effectively allowing us to change the block out from underneath the machine, or turn it into an entity, or turn it into a missile, turn it into a minecart, and so on. So that'd be a great solution for this, so we can generate a force field rather than glass wall, and it would just be really enjoyable. I think a couple other uses for this is if you're ever playing with Lim's warp drive mod, you might be able to attach a warp drive to this and then take the whole biosphere and move it. I've never actually used the mod, so I don't know exactly if that is even possible, but it would be kind of cool. But anyways, we've captured a really sizable location. Now, what I would love to do is actually show a larger explosion than this, but unfortunately, that one took a long enough time by itself. But this version should be pushed out tonight, and for those of you who want to actually toy with it, can then download and toy with it then, and have a lot of fun. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today, and I will be back with more videos later.